Did you hear that Chinese companies are doing IPOs overseas again, namely even in the US? Well, you wouldn't believe that if you read all of the news by Bloomberg in the last couple of months, but actually last year I already made the call that I think the regulations that I see putting into place by actually the Chinese regulators do indicate that they still want their companies to go overseas and list abroad. And actually they came out and said so specifically that they encourage it, doing it. However, it can just not go the way that DIDI has done it, bypassing regulators, bypassing rules and stuff like that. And so now we have the first case actually, and there are a couple of interesting things to learn from both the Chinese side and also the US side about maybe the future of Chinese listings overseas. So let's have a look. So the company that has just IPO'd is called Meihua, and it's the first company after the DIDI fiasco that has IPO'd in the US. And well, it is a medical device maker, so more on the hardware side than on the software or internet side of things. And this will make things much more easy, as we will see now. Because basically, if we look at their Form F1 filing, so the IPO filing, there are a couple of interesting things inside here. And the first one has to do with the company structure. So for this IPO, they chose to not list via an VIE structure. So that is the structure often used specifically by internet companies in China to kind of have a legal workaround to be able to list overseas. But no, what they have done here is, yes, they also have this Cayman Island company, so a shell company, a holding company that is holding this Hong Kong company. Both of this is offshore, so not on the Chinese mainland, these companies. This is the way these companies can get listed, and they have stakes that are trickling down here onshore. So that's the difference between the VIE structure, that the Hong Kong company here has actually a 100% ownership in the onshore mainland China business. And this is then not based on just a contract like the VIE structure, which is basically using a contract to give certainty that the offshore company has access and oversight to the onshore company. No, this time it is via owning equity in this onshore companies. And this way it's not a VIE structure. And this, we have learned, is easier now to do for Chinese companies, because one of the measures that the Chinese regulators have introduced after the DIDI fiasco is that they said, stop, if you go overseas and list in the US, we first want to look at you, your business, and see whether or not you involve any consumer data that may get leaked or any other national security issues, and give you an approval that you can, for example, use the VIE structure to list overseas. Since they're not using the VIE structure, they don't even need to get this approval. And so this case doesn't really give us a new insight whether or not, let's say, a Chinese internet platform business could go and list in the US right now and actually use the VIE structure, and how this process would actually go in terms of the approval of the regulator. So this case doesn't really prove that, and this would be, let's say, the next step. But as a first step now, we have a first new listing of a Chinese companies overseas. Now, the second thing that they, of course, will face, and that's rather on the US side, is still the danger of delisting, right? Because there's still the Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act. And so this is also an issue for this new IPO, actually. But what they have done here is they have included this paragraph, which is the report of an independent registered public accounting firm. So basically, stating who is their accounting firm, and this accounting firm that they're using here is stating that we are a public accounting firm registered with the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board in the United States, so the PCAOB, and well, that we conducted audits in accordance with the standards of the PCAOB, so meaning they have the oversight over all of the finances of this company and in accordance to the PCAOB law. And so, of course, they think that this should be sufficient for being compliant with the Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act and SEC requirements. And therefore, in whole, this IPO here is kind of a prototype of how Chinese companies in the future could go public overseas and not face the issue of getting delisted, and on the other hand, not having the issues with Chinese regulators at home. Now, as I've mentioned before, this is just a first step. I also did a long read Patreon post over the last weekend in which I said, like, well, I'm seeing that this kind of potential development there from both the Chinese side, the regulators, as well as on the US side, that I think there might be ways of, both sides getting together. And well, this kind of proves now that there are the first steps of Chinese companies that are seeking IPO again. However, this is not for all internet platform businesses and so on. So there, the bear case here would be that people would doubt that, let's say, an Alibaba going IPO now would still get the approval from the Chinese regulator for using the VIE structure, although the Chinese regulators have said so publicly that they think the VIE structure is necessary to go global in IPO, and just that they want to give the approval before they're doing so. But this case is certainly not proving that. Anyways, I think we may see more of this in 2022, and we also have still pending positive news, hopefully, by the Chinese regulators who came out and said that they are in negotiations with the US side and possibly want to formalize, that's my take here, more rules on how this whole go in IPO and abroad can happen with the basically the approval of the Chinese side as well. And so I think we need more of such cases like that one to also change the investors' mindset that this seems to be still possible in the future. Of course, there could be still negative news coming out. For example, today we also still have some more negative news around Chinese regulators regulating the food delivery business side. Meituan taking a dump here, minus 15%, because they said like the fees that are charging are too high. My take actually here is that of course, it's not good that they are intervening there, and this will likely also show on the bottom line of the business, meaning lower revenues or less profitability. However, the restaurants that are using Meituan here as a business on the platform are also struggling, and one way or the other, Meituan would lose that business if the restaurants are unsatisfied or not able to pay those fees. And so ultimately, right now, this is seen as kind of a stimulus for those smaller businesses to strive, and the bigger platforms kind of need to make these changes right now. And so we can't say that in total the regulatory scrutiny is kind of over, but it's becoming more orderly, I would say, and we'll see that possibly in the end things could even out. That's at least my take here. And then I hope you enjoyed this as a quick dive here, and thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next one.